The night air over northern Ukraine was still, too still. In the small city of Pripyat, the lights of apartment blocks shimmered softly across the river as workers from the nearby power plant drifted to sleep after another ordinary shift. The rhythmic hum of Chernobyl's reactors had become part of life itself, a background lullaby of progress and pride for the Soviet dream. Then, just past 1:23 a.m. on April 26, 1986. The lullaby broke. A flash of blinding blue light tore through the sky, windows shattered, the ground convulsed. In the control room, dials spun wildly, a heartbeat racing toward collapse. And within seconds, the roof of Reactor Number 4 was gone, ripped apart by an explosion so violent that it hurled radioactive fire into the heavens. From that moment, time stopped. The city still slept, unaware that the night had turned deadly. For those who woke to watch the strange glow above the horizon, it looked like dawn had arrived early. But no one could imagine what came next, when Earth trembled. If stories like this fascinate you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. It keeps history alive. Before the explosion, Chernobyl was not a name whispered in fear. It was a symbol of human triumph. The year was 1986, and the Soviet Union stood tall in its belief that science could master nature itself. The Chernobyl Nuclear Power Plant, located near the quiet city of Pripyat, was a crown jewel of Soviet engineering. It provided power to millions and jobs to thousands. Life in Pripyat was comfortable, almost idyllic. Children played in wide courtyards surrounded by birch trees. Couples strolled hand in hand beneath neon street lamps. The local amusement park was preparing to open for May Day celebrations. Every morning, workers in crisp uniforms boarded buses to the power plant, proud to serve their nation's progress. But beneath that calm routine, pressure was building, invisible, silent, unstoppable. Inside Reactor Number 4, a late-night safety test was being prepared, one designed to simulate a power outage. It was a test that engineers believed would prove the reactor's reliability. Yet it was also a test filled with risk. Unseen by the people of Pripyat, small errors and miscommunications began to stack upon one another, layer by layer, until the perfect chain of failure was set in motion. And as midnight approached, the reactor's heart began to beat faster. At 1:23 a.m., a sudden surge of power jolted through Reactor Number 4. Inside the control room, alarms screamed, red lights blinking like desperate eyes. Operators scrambled to stabilize the reactor, pulling levers, shouting commands, their voices colliding in confusion. But it was already too late. The reactor, pushed far beyond its limit, began to tear itself apart from within. Then, an explosion. The sound was unlike thunder or machinery. It was the roar of the earth itself breaking open. A column of fire erupted into the night sky, showering molten graphite and debris across the facility. The building's concrete walls split like paper, and fragments of the reactor core rained down like deadly stars. In the nearby city of Pripyat, windows rattled and dogs barked in the dark. People stepped out onto their balconies, staring toward the plant. What they saw was terrifying, yet strangely beautiful. A shimmering blue glow rising above the reactor. Many thought it was simply a fire. Some even brought their children outside to watch. They didn't know the light was radiation, invisible, deadly, silent. Firefighters were the first to arrive. None of them had protective suits, only helmets, hoses, and courage. They climbed onto the smoking roof, unaware that each breath was filling their lungs with lethal doses of radiation. They sprayed water into the glowing inferno, their boots melting beneath them. Minutes turned to hours. By dawn, dozens were already poisoned. Men collapsed in the debris, vomiting, their skin burned from within. Yet more trucks kept arriving. More firefighters, more soldiers, more men sent into the storm. At the plant's gates, workers watched in horror as pieces of graphite, fragments of the reactor core, lay scattered on the ground, still burning with invisible fire. Some picked them up, not realizing that even a single touch could be fatal. Back inside the control room, the realization sank in. Reactor Number 4 was gone. The core was exposed, open to the sky, releasing radiation at levels the human mind could barely comprehend. In Moscow, phone lines buzzed. Officials argued over what to say, or whether to say anything at all. Hours passed before the gravity of the disaster reached the highest ranks of power. And all the while, the people of Pripyat carried on with their day, sending their children to school, shopping for bread, walking beneath a rain of radioactive dust. The invisible storm had begun. A storm that could not be seen, smelled, or touched, but would poison the earth for centuries to come. That night, the world changed, not with the flash of war, but with the silent hum of a dying machine. The morning after the explosion, the sun rose over Pripyat as if nothing had happened. The sky was a calm blue, birds still sang, and children played outside, riding bicycles through invisible clouds of radioactive dust. Parents watched from balconies, unaware that every breath carried poison. Only miles away, the Chernobyl plant still burned, a smoldering wound in the earth. By midday, hospitals began to fill with the first victims. Firefighters and plant workers arrived trembling, vomiting, their skin blistered and raw. Doctors had no idea what they were facing. They tried to treat burns with ordinary methods, not realizing the wounds came from within, from radiation that had already destroyed bone and blood. Meanwhile, Soviet authorities remained silent. No announcement, no warning. The people of Pripyat were told nothing. Buses lined the streets that evening, not for evacuation, but for precautionary transport. Mothers packed small bags, expecting to return home in a few days. They never did. By the time the evacuation order finally came, nearly 36 hours after the blast, radiation levels were already catastrophic. Helicopters dropped sand, lead, and boron into the open reactor to slow the fire. Soldiers known as liquidators were sent in, tasked to clean radioactive debris with bare hands and shovels. Many never returned. And then came silence. Pripyat became a ghost city overnight. Swings still moving, food left on tables, wedding photos hanging in empty apartments. The laughter of children was replaced by the sound of the wind passing through cracked windows. The city that once represented the bright future of Soviet progress now stood frozen in time, a monument to the cost of human pride. Chernobyl was more than a disaster. It was a turning point in human history. In the days that followed, radioactive clouds drifted across Europe, contaminating fields, rivers, and cities thousands of kilometers away. Sweden was the first to detect it, alerting the world before the Soviet Union even admitted anything had gone wrong. The silence had broken, but too late. More than 300,000 people were eventually displaced. Entire towns were erased from the map. Farmers were forced to abandon the soil that had fed generations. Forests turned red and lifeless, a scar still known today as the Red Forest. But the greatest wounds were invisible. Cancer rates soared. Generations of children were born into fear. Thousands of the so-called liquidators, the men who cleaned the radioactive waste, died in the years that followed, their names forgotten, their heroism unspoken. To this day, radiation still lingers in the soil and water around the exclusion zone. Nature has reclaimed Pripyat, yet it grows wild over poisoned ground. Chernobyl changed more than landscapes. It shattered illusions. It exposed the fragility of human control over the forces we create. Governments around the world began to question nuclear safety. The Soviet Union's image of invincibility cracked under the weight of secrecy and denial, accelerating its collapse just 5 years later. The disaster also sparked a new wave of global cooperation. Scientists, engineers, and environmentalists uniting to ensure such a catastrophe would never happen again. Still, decades later, Chernobyl remains both a warning and a question. How far can humanity go in its pursuit of power before that power turns against us? Even today, under the massive steel sarcophagus that entombs Reactor Number 4, the ground still hums faintly with radiation, a ghostly reminder of a night when a single mistake changed the world. The silence that followed the blast was not just the end of sound. It was the sound of truth itself being buried, waiting to be heard again. In the heart of the Chernobyl exclusion zone, time has stopped. Nature has taken back what humanity abandoned. Trees grow through broken floors, and foxes wander through silent schools where chalk still clings to blackboards. Amid that stillness, the echo of that night remains, the soundless cry of a reactor that defied its makers, and the whispers of those who tried to contain it. Chernobyl is no longer just a place. It is a lesson carved into the bones of history, a reminder that progress without humility can become destruction, and silence in the face of danger can be louder than any explosion. The world moved on, but the radiation endures, invisible, patient, eternal. And as long as the wind passes through the ruins of Pripyat, the memory of that night will never fade. If you believe these stories should never be forgotten, subscribe and keep history alive. When Earth trembled.